Okay guys, this is just a short video to talk you through our new gas stoves to make sure that you know how to use them, being as we're not able to show you them at scout evenings, etc. They come in these little orange containers. They're really nice and small, nice and lightweight. When you get it, simply squeeze the lid off, take out your stove, and the very first thing to do is to check that you've been given the right number, because you will be responsible for the one issued. Armeek has engraved plaques, and this one clearly says First Wigton 02. That's stove number 2, which matches what it says on the instructions. Then, to get ready to use it, we need to check that it's actually all working in proper order. So fold out each of these pan handles, and that's going to be where your pan will sit. And then on the underside, fold out each of the legs. Those legs are going to keep it off the ground and give it a bit more stability when it's placed down on the ground. The key to using your stove is obviously safety. There are 3 strands here. There's the safety to you, there's the safety to the equipment, and there's the safety to the environment. Before you use your stove, you need to find somewhere safe to set it up, and as we'll talk about a little bit later on, I'm outside in the garden so I don't have any gas building up. I'm using a support to protect the ground. I'm also going to make sure that if I've got any long sleeves, they're not going to dangle down onto the stove. My necker is tucked in behind my back, and if I had any hair and it was long, I'd make sure that was tied back as well. We need to make sure that anything flammable is not going to be over the top of the gas. I need to make sure that I'm in a safe environment, so I want nothing above the stove. I'm never going to cook inside a tent, and I never really want to be cooking inside if it's avoidable because of any gas leak that might build up. Sometimes you might have to do that, in which case you need to make sure that the area is well ventilated. The stoves are likely to become hot. That might become an issue with burning the ground. I'm using this breeze block here to make sure that the ground doesn't get wet. You might have to take precautions to ensure that you protect the ground if you're unable to use a stone. Perhaps you might have to lift the turf as we do with a campfire, or alternatively you might need to find a stone surface or a concrete surface, etc. The final stage is to remember that the stove will be hot, both when the gas is burning and also with the contents that you've actually cooked. We don't want to find anybody gets burnt or scalded, so be aware that all parts of the stove are metal and may become hot. You don't want to touch those if you can possibly avoid it, and bear in mind that any pan that is on will be producing hot food. Particularly if that's a liquid, if you were to knock that over, that again would become a scald risk. So make sure your stove is set up properly and stable. Make sure that you are able to keep control of it at all times. Okay, connecting the gas. First thing is to make sure that the gas connector is turned closed, so that means fully clockwise. Check for damage. Needle's looking good here in there. Then we're going to attach and gently spin around, and it started to bite. At this moment no gas is coming out. However, as we get closer, gas will start to come out, and you want to minimize the gas released, so at this end point we need to turn it quickly. Gas connected. Lighting the stove. These stoves have got a piezo electric starter. It's this red button just here. When you press that, it generates a spark here. That means we can have fairly safe operation, but when these fail, it's necessary to use a match. In both cases, when we come to light the stove, we want to ensure we don't use too much gas to start with, and we also want to make sure that we are not above the stove when it lights. Don't run the gas for too long before you try and light it, otherwise when it does light you'll find that you get a little bit of a small fireball coming up. To light it, we're going to turn this handle here anti-clockwise, and you'll hear gas coming out. and then we're going to just squeeze the red button. And there we have our stove alight. I'm just going to show you that again from a different angle. So again, I'm going to turn the gas on, squeeze the piezo lighter, and our stove lights. To turn off the stove, all we do is turn the gas clockwise again until the gas is completely sealed off. I'm sure it's pretty obvious, but the stove is going to be hot. So after you've had a reasonable period of time and you know it's cool, just test carefully with the back of your hand. If you get close to it, you'll be able to feel if it's still hot. When it's no longer hot, we're going to reverse the process of before. So we're going to take our gas cylinder and again, nice and quickly, undo it. And then our stove is ready to put away. Fold in each of the mini legs. Fold in each of the arms. And you'll be left with a pretty small stove. Wrap the wire round and place inside a triangle. And it should fit neatly back in the box, ready for return. Now obviously we've labelled each of these with numbers, and that's to ensure that they're clean. So when it's cooled down, check for any food that's spilled over and for any build-up of soot, etc., and clean that as you normally would with a sponge or other piece of wire wool, and make sure that it's completely dry before you put it away.